Welcome to the bonus episodes of the Recover Your Soul podcast, where we have these beautiful experiences with all kinds of practitioners and teachers from so many different modalities. And today I have Christine Lang, and she is an incredible intuitive energy healer. And in this conversation, she shares a broad range of really profound information, but we talk about how you can start to notice that your body is telling you something, how we can shift the perception of pain and embrace the symptoms as a way to learn and for us to understand what's really going on with ourselves from a spiritual perspective, to open to even more healing and self-discovery. We talk about so many great topics, and she's just a wealth of incredible wisdom and healing and light. Enjoy the episode. Welcome to the Recover Your Soul podcast, a spiritual path to a happy and healthy life. My name is Rev Rachel Harrison. I started Recover Your Soul after having profound changes in my life from my recovery of alcoholism, codependency, and control addiction. I was guided to share the tools and principles of spirituality and soul recovery to help others transform their lives as mine was transformed. For us to overcome external circumstances, we need to turn the attention to ourselves, focusing on our inner change and healing. Positive results in our lives will follow. Welcome to Recover Your Soul. I'm Rev Rachel, and I just been so thrilled to continue to do these interviews with such amazing healers and wisdom teachers. Christine Lang is no exception. And I've already just had an experience with her that was fabulous around energy and healing. You were an attorney and then became an intuitive healer. So welcome, Christine.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, not your typical career path from attorney to medical intuitive.
I want to get into the meat of things, but first, I think that these journeys of how we get to where we are now are so powerful because so many people who are listening might be in that place where they are where it doesn't feel aligned, but they don't know how to get over to this other side. So, can you share
Yeah.
with us what that path was for you?
For me, the journey started with unwanted physical symptoms. My second year of law school, I developed allergies, just upper respiratory stuff, sneezing constantly, streaming eyes, very attractive. And it was before the days of the meds they have now that don't make you drowsy. So I could either take two Benadryl and drink Diet Coke to stay awake in my law school classes, or I could just walk around with a box of tissues. So when I got out of law school and moved to the East Coast, my allergies went even more crazy. And I just got determined to just, I had to cure these things, and started studying what was then called alternative medicine, and got rid of probably 50% of my allergies using homeopathy and
Mm.
homeopathic remedies, and eventually taught a study group for the public for the National Center for Homeopathy because I was so impressed. And I made the link, okay, I have more stress, my allergies are worse. So I started studying Taoism and Buddhism and meditating to reduce my stress, and taking Tai Chi. My Tai Chi instructor encouraged me to study Reiki and learn energy healing. And it all seemed kind of airy fairy for me, but I went along with it because my allergies kept diminishing. And I learned that before I offered a friend an energy treatment, I would say, well, let me come home, take off my lawyer suit, and meditate to change channels in my brain. And when I would do that and meditate, I would hear a word or a phrase about a person. And I finally shared it with the friend I was giving energy to. And she said, how do you know that? That just happened today. And I realized, oh, these are not random phrases. Like, this is information coming from somewhere. And so eventually I went and sat in meditation and said, who am I speaking to? And my spirit said, welcome home. This is who you
Mm.
came here to be. And tears were streaming down my face. And she's like, get ready. It's time to learn. And I would sit in meditation for 3 or 4 hours a day. And she would say, this is the visual I'm going to give you for a hairline fracture. This is what you're going to feel in somebody whose lungs are compromised. And she just started teaching me. And that was about 30 years ago. So I've been in private practice ever since, working with people that doctors and therapists and other practitioners refer to me, either because their physical symptoms don't make any sense. Western medicine can't figure it out, or Western medicine can figure it out, but the medications have side effects they don't want. So a lot of chronic things, backaches, headaches, IBS, anxiety, those sorts of things have such a strong emotional component. And whether it's 75% or 95% of what's happening, when we get to the emotional piece underneath, we can really help the body heal and support its natural healing processes. And I always say it's like your body is a bulletin board and your spirit is leaving you messages there in the form of symptoms. And when you pick up your messages, right, you go inside and you understand what is being shown to you, explained to you, and the symptoms can go away because they're not needed anymore.
That is so powerful because I think when we aren't awakened, when we're not paying attention,
Mhm.
we complain and we say, "Oh, I've got this terrible allergies," or for
Right.
me, I had chronic back pain from an injury as a
Mhm.
kid, and I don't have the same pain that I had before.
Right.
And it's not like I've done work. I'm still just as out of shape as ever, you know? So it's not like I did core exercises. I'm still exactly who I am, but I don't hurt anymore
Yeah.
because my heart doesn't hurt anymore. And
Yeah.
it takes a long time for us to really look at what those symptoms can be. So tell us more about what is your body trying to tell you? What are these symptoms? Can and the part that says I got cancer because I deserved it versus like how those things can play in. Because I think some people can really shove in the "you are deserving of
Right.
pain."
Well, and even people who aren't coming at it from that "I deserve pain" can come at it from, like, the law of attraction. "Well, I must have created this cancer,"
Mhm.
and I think there's some aspect, whether it's 25% or 40% of what we experience that might be something that we've created, that we are in alignment with, but so much, at least 50% of what we experience is something that people might say karmic, but your spirit has chosen it. God has chosen it for you. The universe has chosen it as the best way to help you expand into the next highest version of yourself.
So explain that more, because somebody might have a
So,
hard time
so a
understanding
journey
how
like,
that's true.
okay, I would say cancer is a journey in fear. It's a
Mhm.
study of fear and how we work with it and how you dance with fear. So I don't typically refer to battling cancer. I refer to it as almost like the teacher that is cancer, right? My clients who have come out of cancer journeys have said, man, I have a list now of the blessings that happened, the learnings that happened, what I now understand because of that, and who I am because of that. And not that anyone ever wishes to go through it again, but that idea that they can embrace that this is a journey that yours. I always say, like, cancer is like one of those really crappy college classes that are required. And you're like, oh, I don't want to take astronomy. The professor's boring. Everybody hates it. I don't want to be in this class. But you, at the end of it, you're like, okay, okay, I did get some stuff out of it. And we all get those gifts in crummy wrapping paper, right? We all have some of those things. It's the unplanned medical emergency or health issue or something that happens to a loved or getting fired or, any of those sorts of things that throw us into what we describe as a crisis and kind of shut down. But when we can embrace it and by asking ourselves, our heart, okay, what am I being guided to learn? What is being shown to me here? What are the blessings? So it helps me take that next inch step forward. And I feel people move through it more clearly and they get intuitive nudges about where to go next.
Those are so powerful because I think it's not just medical, just like you said, like if someone gets fired, when we switch the way we see it just a little bit to see that we're actually all learning, there's such movement, as a recovered alcoholic. When I first started going to the rooms, people would be like, "I'm a grateful alcoholic." And when you first are in and your life just feels like it's completely falling apart, you think,
Right.
"How can you be grateful to have this?" And
Right.
now I am so grateful. I am so grateful for every single thing that I went through. I'm grateful that my kids are addicts. Like on some level, this is my soul's journey picked me and these people
Right.
to learn this lesson. And the lesson is I get to choose. And I know people who have been through incredible medical difficulties and are so bright and awakened out of the other side. And I know ones who still complain and claim
Right.
their sickness and everything is terrible for them. And you think, you get to choose how you're going to see it.
Yeah. And I always say, instead of getting critical, get curious.
Hmm.
Right? Instead of complaining, get curious, right? Have that curiosity because it does pull you forward. And finding that space of gratitude aligns you with the best practitioner, the best teacher, the best, all of that. Those are the people you want to be around. Right. And so that's, your vibe attracts your tribe, right? That's how you're going to find your people is to hold yourself in the space of gratitude as often as you can, and not from faking it, but from a place of, okay, I can genuinely be grateful that I live in a country where there are recovery programs, right? And I have access to them, and I have a car to get there, and I have, whatever we have to do to kind of pull ourselves out of our own place of shame or self-pity or upset or anger at God,
Right.
right?
So, one of the things that you said is like you had this intuitive download and you started to feel these things. How do we start to trust that?
I would say that the most simple advice, but the most powerful is make time to be still.
Mm,
Because I think when my favorite Buddhist expression is be still and know. And most of us see our ego mind wants us to just pedal the bike faster. So anything feels a little anxious, a little whatever, being in motion is our solution to it. Right? Get things done. And we're seeking those little dopamine hits of scratching something off our list and feeling productive. But when you can acknowledge that the deeper wisdom in you requires some stillness to access it, it's a game changer. And so you don't have to be some champion meditator. You can simply sit and notice your breathing and slow your breathing down. And then just start off by bringing your awareness to the center of your chest and saying, how does it feel to be me right now? What is
mhm,
true for me right now? And I say to people, if you have an area of your body, a shoulder that's bothering you, a knee that's bothering you, once you get really quiet, you bring your awareness to that space. And then you just say, what are you trying to tell me? And people are always surprised that they get answers to that. But it really works, right? That if your body has a message, it's not withholding, it's happy to share it. It's us becoming really open to hearing it.
yeah. And then once you recognize that, I think people have a desire to like have a way to heal, a way to get better, a way like what Christina, tell me how to like get well, you know?
Right.
So it isn't sometimes about that. And it is if you can allow yourself to move into the energy that is around healing. So what do you suggest in that?
Yes, I think when we understand enough of what the message is, the answer is part of that, right? The next step forward is part of it. If you hear into, oh, my constant stomach pain and digestive upset has to do with my relationship. Well, if you really feel into it, you'll feel where that relationship needs to pivot, right? Where did your boundary get crossed and you keep letting it, or that sort of thing. But it takes that willingness to be really honest with oneself even when it's scary,
Mhm.
even when we're afraid of the change that might be required. And I have a monthly class and I have small group sessions where I channel people's spirits for them and get answers that are, take the supplement that are more specific. But obviously, people can't do that all the time. So it's worth it to invest in a practice for yourself, whether it's automatic writing or journaling, but sitting in meditation and just getting used to going within. My spirit told me a long time ago, we most of our antenna are all pointed outward. What's everybody else doing? What's everybody think of me? How am I being perceived? And very few of our antenna are pointed inward so that we really only notice when it's extreme. Wow, I'm really exhausted. Wow, I'm really starving. Wow, we don't notice the little things. And, we kind of push them off to the side to process later, and later never comes. And they do build into symptoms of, by the 10th time you let your coworker take advantage of you and take credit for your work, you might have a frozen shoulder, right? You might have some things come up because it's felt like "Nyeh," a little twist in your stomach for 2 months and you just keep putting it aside. So it's, I think, good preventative medicine to go inside and notice what is my own interior experience currently? Not what do I still have regrets about from my past? Not what am I afraid about in my future? What is going on for me currently?
Wow. Being in this present moment can be so hard when there's so much stuff going on. And yet, one of the things we were talking about before we started recording was the concept of being kind to yourself right here.
Hmm.
Because so many of us, everybody, I haven't met a single person yet who hasn't been through it.
Right.
And then we're playing those old traumas. And you were relating it to recovery and addiction. Will you share a little bit about what you were sharing with me?
Yeah, I've worked with a lot of clients who've gone through some sort of recovery, and one of the things that their spirit inevitably gives them guidance on is really acknowledging your current self and how many people feel like they've they have this regret for past decisions. And so the visual I get sometimes is like a Santa Claus pack over one's shoulder and it goes streams out like 10 feet behind them. And it's like they're dragging along all their past mistakes and all that dumb relationship I knew I shouldn't have gotten into. And I should have broken up with that guy 3 years earlier and all the mistakes
Mhm.
that if you think about it, they never really intend to forgive themselves for. There is this unconscious belief that because I did that dumb thing, that harmful thing to somebody that I love, I'll have to pay forever because, hey, I did it. So I want to be responsible. But I think there's a difference between being accountable, making amends to the degree you can, and then releasing yourself so you can be the current version of yourself, not a sliver of the current version of yourself and who you've been over the last 30 years.
I love that because I think that goes for everybody. I told the story on my podcast that I went to Indonesia with my husband, and not the husband that I struggled with for 15 years, but the husband that I have today.
Yeah.
And to be able to be present with that allowed us to have a really beautiful experience, and it doesn't mean that there weren't some bumps in the road, but I love that you talk about the pack because that's actually a description that I talk about in step 1 of soul recovery, about
Mhm.
being powerless over every single thing outside of yourself, and yet you're carrying the weight of all the memories and all the
Yes.
resentments and all the anger behind you as a sack. That's exactly how I describe it.
Nice, nice. Well, and I think we overly identify with our past, and if we can acknowledge that, every cell in your body is always changing, right? You replace your entire body every 7 years. You've got a totally new body. There's not a cell in your body that's the same. And yet you're still treating yourself like the person 20 years ago that quit that job and shouldn't have, or fired that guy and shouldn't have, or cheated on that guy, or whatever that was, that we're still living, part of ourselves is still living back there. And you can see it as some of your energy being drained off because it's being used to keep alive a past version of you that has no purpose. And so now you're diluting how powerful you are in the present because so much of your energy is still going to feed past versions of yourself.
So if someone doesn't understand energy, you and I can talk about energy all day, and I get what you're
Mhm.
saying, but somebody's new to this whole concept of energy
Okay.
and how much of it we have. What does that look like?
So I would say picture yourself like a row of gingerbread men lined up like dominoes. And there's 30 versions of you of who you've been every year for the past 30 years. And how much of your focus, your description of yourself, your concept of who you are is in that front one. And how much of it is linked in all those other past ones.
Mm.
And so you can tell when you talk to somebody and they're not fully present. And usually we think of it because they're distracted. Like they're like, yeah, yeah, but they're really waiting for the UPS guy to pull up or whatever. So we know when we don't have somebody's full attention. But that concept of I don't have my full attention for myself ever. I'm never fully present because part of me is always still in the past, having regrets, beating myself up, wishing it had gone differently. Instead of accepting, as you knew better, you did better, and that's true for all of us. No one wakes up and says, I'm going to make a really bad decision today. Right? We make the best decision given the options we see at the time. Right?
Yes. Yeah. I love that because it goes back to what you were just saying is if we can't forgive ourselves, if we're always on the back gingerbreads,
Yeah.
then we're also harming our ability for our body to be well.
Yes.
And then there's all those symptoms that are
And you're
coming.
not fully present for the people who love you currently.
Mm.
Right? If you want to really show up for the people who love you currently. And the other thing is because we know we're always changing, if you're relating, say, in your example, to your husband of 3 years ago versus who he is right now, then you're actually not loving him. You're loving the projection of him that you need to keep your identity going how it is right now.
That's a big one.
That's a big pill to swallow, right? But there's a real freedom in loving somebody for who they are right now because it encourages them to change. And we all think we want our partners and our kids to change, but when we keep rehashing past versions of themselves, we actually pull back the reins on a horse to any change going forward, right?
That's incredibly powerful
And so if
because
you
I don't think people realize that that's what they're doing. They're holding the reins tight, tight, tight and saying, go, 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 go.
go, I need you to be this instead, but I'm going to keep reminding you of who you were last year.
Mhm.
But I'm telling you, I want you to be somebody different. But as you start to shift into that different version of yourself, I'm not going to acknowledge it until it looks beautiful and perfect and everything I want. Instead, I'm going to keep guilting you and shaming you about who you were before. Very little motivation to change. But think about, a kid in fifth grade going into math class that way. And the teacher's like, well, you only knew fourth grade math last year, and keeps reminding this kid, you only knew fourth grade math last year, and you probably don't know all the fifth grade math yet. Right? It makes the kid go within and not
Mm.
want to branch out and try something new because it doesn't get recognized.
Wow, that's a beautiful way to say it, and I think this is the beauty of all this work is hearing it from all these different perspectives and all these different angles so that it can it can finally be true because there's some part of us that's holding on to these old beliefs that if I shame them enough, I often say it's like you swat the dog on the butt for getting in the trash.
Mhm.
But with the dog, we don't swat him in the butt every hour and say, you got in the trash an hour ago, a day ago, a week ago, a year ago. But we
Yeah.
do that to our family,
Yep.
verbally, emotionally,
And at
tell
what
them,
point does the dog say, "Well, hell, I might as well get in the trash every day because I'm getting beat for it continuously."
right.
Right.
Why not? I'm not gonna be good.
Yeah. Yeah. It doesn't get seen even when I am because for 2 hours I didn't get in the trash and there was no recognition of it.
So if our spirit is always working with us, I have more and more connection to mine, which I'm really grateful for.
Mhm.
What does it want for us? How can we access that to really be connected to that part of ourselves?
Yeah. I think when people ask me, I want to know my soul's purpose, I think sometimes they're disappointed that their soul's purpose is not, come down here and invent a cure for cancer or incarnate and be Florence Nightingale. It's so much more often to learn how to express love more fully and then model that for everybody around you. And what does that full expression of self look like? And part of that is noticing where we get hooked, where we get hooked by guilt and shame and regret and fear, and then asking and praying and asking for help in unhooking ourselves. And so that the soul's journey is really about experiencing more compassion, more self-forgiveness, more love, more unconditional acceptance of other people while having healthy boundaries. So I can unconditionally accept that you want to go be a bank robber because it's always been your dream and you bought some guns and you're ready to go do it. And I'm like, I will honor that that's the journey you think, but I'll make a boundary that I'm not going anywhere near you and I'm not driving the car. Right. So I can have an unconditional acceptance of the journey that you and your spirit have chosen. And when someone comes with me and they're in the end stages of a disease, and they're hoping for a Hail Mary pass for me that I'm just going to miraculously make the cancer go away. I always say your ego might write the check or put the credit card in, but I work for the spirit world. And so your soul, I'm going to honor your soul's journey. And if this is how your soul is choosing to leave, I will just support you in that process. And so it is one of the prayers that I use is please align me with my soul's desires so that my desires and God's desires and my soul's desires are the same. And when they're in alignment, I'm always going to be happy. I'm always going to get what I want because I've learned to align what I want with what is in my highest good and the highest good of everybody I care about.
That's really powerful. It's what I believe so strongly. And I know for myself that when that alignment shift happened, and the big shift was to connect to myself and to live from that purpose, which wasn't to, I had no idea that I was going to become a minister and have this podcast and have this community. What I did was I aligned with me to be healed for me.
Right.
And that was the truth of who I was so that I could be, I wasn't being the loving person that I was.
Yeah. Well, and I love that Thich Nhat Hanh says, the greatest thing you can do for the world is pursue your own enlightenment.
Yes.
And I always tell people I do this work because it furthers my spiritual development. And as soon as you all interfere with my path, you're all gone. It's just that's my commitment is to find the next fullest, most expansive expression that my soul wants to have, whether that's to teach a certain class or run a retreat or write a book or do whatever. It's what is the expression my spirit wants to have of what is possible with the lovingness that I now understand. How can
Mhm.
that be expressed?
That's beautiful. Huh, I resonate so much. Your energy is just beautiful.
Oh,
So
thank you.
before we also pressed record, you talked about a concept that I'd love to dig into that can be kind of hard for people, but is something again that I resonate with, which is the concept of us connecting with other souls
Mm.
in the complexity that it can be for us to learn from each other. Will you tell me a little bit more
I
about
think
that?
I think by the time you're interested in any sort of a spiritual path, right? Probably all of your listeners qualify for this. You've had probably several hundred lifetimes. So you've
Mm,
been male and female and you've been every skin color and you've been the prostitute and the guy that hired the prostitute and the guy that was the abusive boss and the employee of the abusive boss. And we play these different roles like we're getting cast in a high school play, right? Oh, now I want to be this. And so before we incarnate, we meet with our guides, and my understanding is that we sort of have this discussion of what are the things that I most want to experience in this lifetime, and then how can I set myself up to go experience them. So if I want to work on ideas of money and I really want to work through scarcity, then I might say, I want to incarnate to that couple because he's going to file bankruptcy twice because he's going to keep gambling his money away. And there's always going to be scarcity issues. And that'll really set me up to do my work on that.
mm,
And then we choose to incarnate to our parents and with our siblings that we choose, knowing they're going to program us to have the issues that we want to have. Because it's in the pursuit of the healing of those issues that we have the opportunities for our spiritual growth and expansion.
and that goes against, I would think, some people's idea that would say, "Shouldn't I have chosen it to be totally easy peasy and not have
I,
any issues?"
I get that question all the time. And what people's spirits say is this analogy: if you could watch two different movies, and the first one is, somebody sexy like Brad Pitt or some, and he's chasing the bad guys, or Tom Cruise in one of his Mission Impossible movies when he saves the day and it's nonstop adrenaline and all these great things happen, or a movie about a guy who is a surveyor and he walks up a hill the whole time. He tells you about his wife and his kids, and they're very nice. They have a very nice house, and they built the house themselves. And almost everybody votes for the first movie because
Right.
it's more of an experience. And then the client spirit says, yeah, us too. They want the drama and the intensity. Once the drama is happening to us, we make it bad, right? If you drive by a car accident, everybody looks, but if it happens to you, it's a terrible tragedy, right? It's an awful dramatic event that this guy rear-ended you and now this thing happened. But if it's happening to somebody else, it's kind of a curious drama,
Mhm.
right? We say, how bad was that? How much does the car get damaged, right? So it's all in our perception, but our spirits aren't afraid of drama and intensity the way we learn to become afraid of it. And so if we can understand that concept, then we don't make the universe wrong for giving us those parents, for giving us that sibling, for giving us the bully who was in high school, for all the different experiences that we went through. We agreed in some way. And usually healing occurs in a session or a group session because the person gets to hear why their spirit chose that.
Mm.
Here's the lesson I wanted to get from that. Here's the wound I wanted to have because I knew it would drive me to see that therapist in my 20s and that counselor in my 30s. And look how it worked.
And once we realize the pain isn't necessary, it goes away,
And
you
I always
know?
say the pain has a purpose. And
Mhm.
when you figure out what the purpose is, the pain level drops by 80%,
Right.
right? If you didn't know what childbirth was, right, and all of a sudden you started having that pain, you'd be like, holy cow, the world coming to an end, right? And when you know, okay, this has a beginning and a middle and an end, I get this beautiful baby at the end, and I luckily am near a hospital, and then it's still intense, but you ride that intensity in a different way,
Right.
right? And so same thing when clients understand, oh, I chose that abusive alcoholic mother because it led me to get into this program and raise my kids this way. And now I teach this program at the local high school. And I wouldn't have if I had the little house on
Mhm.
the prairie lifetime.
Right. It's so empowering to switch the story just a little bit
Yep.
and stop seeing yourself as a victim and see yourself as the hero in your movie.
And my guides tell us, again, we've all had so many lifetimes. Everybody has had the little house on the prairie lifetime, the Partridge family, the Brady Bunch. Everybody has had those lifetimes. And usually when that lifetime ends, they reincarnate again pretty quickly because that was like, wait, let me do something more exciting. And they come right back.
Hmm.
So even though our ego wants that because the ego is afraid of change and afraid of pain and afraid of turmoil and afraid of all these things, the soul enjoys the contrast and the intensity, just like when we go to a movie.
What is your personal belief? Not that anybody has to believe what either you or I believe, but what's your
Sure.
personal belief of what the final destiny is for the soul? What is the purpose of all these experiences?
Nobody's ever asked me that question exactly that way, but I would say that it has to do with expansion. And I
Mhm.
think when we're in physical form, Our goal is to be the most expanded version of that. And then you get to the most, if we equivocate this to grade school, right? And there's kindergartners and there's 12th graders. And the 12th graders are Jesus and Buddha and those sort of teachers. And then beyond that, they probably incarnate to a planet that is more expanded and more evolved. And you keep going and going until you're so expanded, you're just part of the oneness.
Mm, mm. I like that. I like that. I remember at one point with my mom, who was a Tibetan Buddhist. I was raised from the very beginning Tibetan Buddhist. And at one point I said, I'm really hoping I can get it this lifetime and that I'm coming to the end. And she said, that's not how that works. And when you become more expanded, you want to come back and be of service to others.
Mhm.
It's the ego self that says, I want off the ride. But
Yeah.
it's really the other part of ourself that says, once I get through my curriculum and realize my purpose is to be love and light and compassion and my full self, then I am being of light and love and help to others.
There is a joy in being of service, which and when you're in spirit form, no one needs service,
Right.
right? It's so perfect and blissful. So everybody assumes that's the ultimate. And my spirit and other client spirits always say, "Yeah, we'll enjoy that for a while." And then you miss being of service and you miss growing and go overcoming challenges and all that sort of stuff. And then we reincarnate. And you can experience bliss. And you know, clients, their spirit will say, yeah, if you really want that, we'll stay there forever if you want, but I promise you won't. Once enough of the ego drops off, the spirit wants that exploration.
It's part of the wheel of the 6 pieces of Buddhism. One of
Mhm.
them is you get to the top place, which is to be that expansion, and eventually you come back into the
Right.
fold of the rest of the wheel. You don't even stay there.
Yep.
Well, Christine, what a fabulous conversation. I love it. So juicy and interesting. And thank you for doing a cleansing and a healing with me before we
Oh,
got started.
sure.
My runny nose is gone and the entity has been removed. So thank you for
You
that.
are so welcome. You are so welcome. Thank you for having me. It was a fun conversation.
So tell them about how they can contact you.
You can find me. My website is Christine Lang, Lang, christinelang.org. And there are free guided meditations. There are all kinds of free resources there. There's a monthly class that we have that is available to anyone who wants to join called Your Energy Matters that helps people shield themselves from negative energy and clear themselves. And we basically just talk about anything that affects your energy, especially the energy from other people that are around you, whether it's toxic in-laws or whatever that might be. And that meets once a month. You're welcome to join that. And I also have small group sessions. I'm booked out over a year for private sessions, but the small group sessions, everybody's guaranteed to get some channeled messages there and a really big dose of healing energy there as well.
Fabulous. Well, I have so enjoyed our conversation. And I know that the people who are drawn to be healed and taught by you will be there. So thank you so
Yeah.
much for sharing
Oh,
your
thank
love and
you.
light.
Thanks for having me.
If you're ready for soul recovery, as a spiritual coach, I can support your healing to help make real changes that will bring you a life of peace, happiness, connection, and abundance. You can also work in smaller groups by taking a deep dive in a Zoom workshop or with me in person at a retreat or an event. Join others on the soul recovery path once a month for the free Zoom support group or daily on the private Facebook page. Visit the website recoveryoursoul.net to book coaching sessions with me or find all the information you need about soul recovery, dates that are coming up, and how to register for those groups and workshops. To support the podcast and the community, check the links in the show notes to make a small monthly donation or a one-time donation of your choice that will make a huge impact to support this community and the soul recovery mission. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Recover Your Soul podcast and being part of this amazing and growing community. If you loved this episode and you want even more, there is a bonus episode with even more content every Friday. This is by subscription. You can access that by being a Patreon member, and there's 3 tiers of giving of your choice, or an Apple Podcast subscriber. Once you have subscribed, you have access to a whole back catalog of episodes as well. If you would go to the website, recoveryoursoul.net, and I would love for you to subscribe to email updates so that you can keep posted with everything that's going on, different events, what dates are coming up, any reminders. There's only a couple emails each month. I hope you'll follow Recover Your Soul on social media. You can find us on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, the private Facebook community page, TikTok, and if you want guided meditations, look for Rev Rachel Harrison on Insight Timer. I really encourage you to take advantage of the one-on-one coaching. This is a unique, intuitive connection between the two of us. There are 9 steps to soul recovery, and I do use those 9 steps to loosely guide us through whatever your coaching that you need. But really, it's about creating a way for you to feel comfortable around your healing of your past, looking at the situations in your life. What are the patterns? What are the beliefs that are holding you back? Breaking free from those patterns, breaking free from those beliefs, letting go of control, letting go of the people around you, and taking your power back. Discovering who you are and who you want to be in the world, and how I can support you to do this. And also, you're sharing this podcast with your friends, putting 5 stars, leaving reviews, really sharing this with others is growing the community. Thank you for being part of this community. Thank you for supporting Recover Your Soul. And I know that together we can do the work that will recover your soul.